It turns out it's pretty easy to get started in writing. You might start out like I did and use Word or Google Docs, but you'll find pretty quickly that you'll want more power than those can offer. Why is that? You'll be adding things to your novels and short stories, like reference photos, you'll add notes, you'll have brainstorming documents. You'll also want to generate different formats for your editor, for your beta readers. You'll want to publish at some point to a print format or an ebook format. And that's what more powerful programs like Scrivener offer to the writer. Scrivener, as you might have guessed, is my tool of choice. I've been using it for many years at this point, and I thought what I would do is create a top 10 favorite features video that gives you sort of a taste of what the tool is like. Now, this isn't meant to be a how-to instructional video. I will be creating that type of video and more. Things like how to use it on a day-to-day basis, how to get started and create your first Scrivener project, some power tips like how to compile, how to search effectively. So if that interests you, be sure to subscribe to get notified when those videos come out. I give different talks on writing at conventions, and I often say that there's no 1, 2, or 3 big reasons to switch to Scrivener, but there are dozens of small ones. It's a very configurable tool, and so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Hi, my name is Brad Bollier, and I'm a full-time fantasy and science fiction author. I've published a dozen novels, more than 20 short stories, and I really enjoy talking about the craft of writing, which is why I started this channel, A Novel Approach. A Novel Approach is dedicated to helping you reach your writing goals by sharing inspiration, technique, and my 20+ years of experience in writing and publishing. We'll jump into the main content in just a second, but before we get started, I wanted to let you know that this video doesn't have a sponsor, but it is supported by people like you who get value out of the instructional videos I create and share, leave donations here on YouTube, or maybe even purchase my writing classes and or books on my website, quillings.com. So thank you very much for all of the continued support. It's because of you that I can continue to make free videos just like this one. And for those of you who are new, please consider subscribing so you can keep up on all the latest tips, tricks, and deep dive techniques I'm adding on writing. So let's dive in. My first favorite feature of Scrivener is the composition mode. So here we have Scrivener. I want to define one thing before we begin, and that is Scrivener's use of the term Scrivenings. It has a binder view on the left-hand side, and really this is effectively a way to keep all of your writing and other documents, whether it's character sketches, setting sketches, notes on edits, that sort of thing, keeping it all in one place. And they're all called Scrivenings, and you can select one or more, and when you do, it will show up in the currently selected editor pane. Now, you may have only one, but you can have two. And so whichever one you've currently selected, that's where the Scrivenings will show up. And you can select one, you can select multiples, and when you do, that'll show up in that current editor pane. Whichever one you happen to be in, when you go into composition mode, that's what it will show. So here on the Mac, you go under View, enter composition mode. It'll be very similar on the PC version. And again, if you're a fan of keyboard shortcuts like I am, you can see them here and you can configure those as well. So if I go into composition mode, really what it is a way to declutter your screen and focus on the stuff that you want to edit currently. So you can see here, instead of the binder view and the pane and the menuing system, it gets rid of all that stuff. Now this view is pretty nice. It is configurable. You can change the background color. You can change the amount of fade on the sides here. So you can see if I slide this to the left, it actually shows the background. And if I slide it back in place, I like it fully hidden in the background. You can do that. All the editors show the current words in the current document. There's other fun features like the focus. You can focus on just a line or a paragraph. You can change the width of the paper to suit your needs. I often change it until it's just pleasing to the eye. The position can be moved left or right as well. And then the zoom, you can make it larger or smaller depending on your font size and such. So that's composition mode. It's very useful for just keeping everything out and letting me focus on my current scene. My second favorite feature of Scrivener, and these aren't in any particular order, I'm really just going from kind of my most commonly used features and just zooming out a little bit. But I really enjoy the dual pane editing as well. I try to stay in that composition mode as often and as long as I can, but there are times when I really need to look at two different scenes, for example. I might have finished one scene and I'm writing the new one, and I just want to reference the other one on the left side while I'm writing on the right side. And so there's this little toggle right here for dual pane editing. Now, when you do that, you'll see that it gets very skinny, right? And you can hide, which is what I do when I'm in just my laptop. I have a large monitor in my office where I don't need to do this, but if I'm out and about at a coffee shop or what have you, I will hide the binder. And then this view over here, I will go over a little bit later. This shows various things, including the comments, what snapshots you might have, saves in essence. And so you can hide that as well. So I will hide both of those, and then it allows me to resize these as well, so I can have two side by side. Again, it might be I might have finished one scene and I'm working on a new one. I write multi-POV books, and so I might have a chapter from weeks or perhaps even months ago that I want to reference, and so I'll put that on the left-hand side, and then I'll put my current scene on the right side. And it's just super useful to be able to look at what happened in that old scene and use it to refresh my memory, to give me ideas for what I want to write in the current scene. And very often I'm writing in both. In fact, I might be having the characters talk about some previous scene, in which case I'm making minor tweaks maybe for effect. And then I have to really reflect that in both occurrences of that information that's being passed. Or I might actually be editing both of them. I might have something that happened in a previous scene that affects a new one, and I just want to make tweaks to both of them, the original occurrence and then when it's referenced later on. My third favorite feature of Scrivener is selecting multiple Scrivenings. So I've kind of already alluded to this already, but it is very useful to be able to select multiple things on the left-hand side. So let me just show you. So I can select one, as I said. You can select a range. So if you want several chapters in one of these panes, you can do that. And again, whichever side of these dual panes you are currently in, that's where the selection in the binder will activate. And so now I've switched over here and I can select a couple of other different Scrivenings. And so it's just very easy to be able to look at and get what you need. And it's not always other scenes that I'm looking at. I have a lot of notes on places and characters. I might have my synopsis for the current book, in which case I want to just look at that to jog my memory of what comes next, or think about where I'm headed in the story, and then write about it on the other side. Or I might be in full brainstorming mode, and really my Scrivenings that I'm editing are not writing per se, they're the reference material that I'm going to use in that book. Maybe it's the plot, maybe I'm expanding that, maybe I'm adding information on characters. And that's another piece of this that's very useful, is just having different types of Scrivenings. So we have our writing that we've gone over. You might have little research notes like brainstorming, or different things like, I'm going to have a thieves guild, so I'm going to detail what that's like. I do like having world-specific swearing in my books, so by mighty Thor or what have you. So I'll notate those as I go along, just so I can kind of keep track of them and just keep that world sort of unique, and fresh. And so, yeah, the dual pane editing mode is really useful for that kind of thing, just to be able to look at more than one document at a time. My fourth favorite feature of Scrivener is the ability to organize through the binder. I've shown you a little bit through the manuscript itself. You can break down the manuscript into different folders and scenes within those folders, essentially chapters and scenes. But you've probably seen the research tab, the characters, world. Those are all configurable. For example, I can close this world folder here, characters. I can move them around however I want. And you can change those whenever you need to. Like often in the beginning, I'm kind of focused on world and character, maybe less on plot. And then if I want to focus on plot more, I can just move that up. It's just very easy to move things around however I need to, given the demands of my current state of the project. So the binder is just a really efficient way to organize everything, from your actual manuscript to the world that you've built, the rules around it, the history, the characters that inhabit it, the plot that you've planned, so on and so forth. It's just a really nice feature to be able to organize your thoughts, your writing, your plans for your story. My fifth favorite feature of Scrivener is the tools that Scrivener provides to help you stay on track. And for me, that's draft targets, session targets. So let me just show you on any particular set of Scrivenings that you've selected. If you're in an editor and you've selected one or more, it will show the total word count at the bottom for that particular set of Scrivenings. So most often that's a single scene for me. So here, for example, at the bottom, it shows 2,000 words for this chapter. So that in itself gives me some information, and I tend to shoot for about 2,000 to 2,500 words per chapter. But there's also a way to set up session and draft targets. So I brought up the target window, and so this is my book. It has a manuscript target of a certain number of words, and it keeps track of that on a cumulative basis. Anything that is in this manuscript folder will be counted towards that manuscript target. And so I'm shooting for, perhaps for this book, something like 80,000 words, 90,000 words, what have you. So you can change that however you want. And then for the session, you can change that as well. You can have, I try to shoot for 2,000 words per day. And so in the session target, you can have that reset at a certain time, 1 a.m. in my case, but you can set that to whatever you want. And when that time hits, it resets that counter. And so it allows me, as I'm writing, I will bring up this little window several times, especially as I'm getting a little bit tired. I shoot for like 1,000 words in the morning, 1,000 in the afternoon, and it just helps keep me on track. Not everybody works that way, but I think a lot of people do, and I certainly do. I try to set certain goals that I'm trying to reach per day, per week, per month, and I will create a video on that type of thing in the future at some point, how some ideas for how to keep you on track, but this helps me quite a bit. The sixth favorite feature of Scrivener is the comments. Now, every word processor tool has this type of thing, but I wanted to mention it because A, I find it super useful. It's almost a must-have for this type of thing. And I use it for things like making notes of things I want to edit, but I don't want to change right now. I do try to keep moving forward throughout a manuscript and not going back and fixing things. I used to do that in the beginning of my writing career, and it just slowed me down a lot. I try to keep moving forward as much as I can. And so the comments really help with that type of thing. And so when you select a certain number of Scrivenings, it will show any comments that are in those Scrivenings. And so here, this current selected scene, it has a single comment. But if I show you the manuscript, the full manuscript, so in the center we have all of the words written in the manuscript, and on the right, in the comments pane, we have all of the comments. And again, be sure you've selected the comments sub pane here. This will show you other things about the currently selected scenes too, like the snapshots and such, but the comments will show up there. So you have the ability to add comments and just add a little bit of text on any given one. So for example, here, I can see it's kind of highlighted in this yellow in my case, and then it shows the comment on the right-hand side. My seventh favorite feature of Scrivener is the search capabilities. Now, the most common type of search, I suppose, is when you're in a given scene, you might want to search in that scene for something. So I might be looking for father, in which case you can scroll through different occurrences of that word. So that is one useful feature. I mean, again, a must-have. But another very powerful feature is the search in project. So I did Shift-Command-F to bring up this extra search feature right here. And so I'm going to search for a character called Ezekiel. And so as I type, it's searching as I go. And it will find all of the scenes that have Ezekiel in it. If you don't sub-qualify this in any way, it will search in the titles as well, and actually the comments too. And that's a hint of how powerful this can be. If I click here, you can see that I can search only in the title of the Scrivenings if I want, or just the text, or the notes, synopsis, keywords, on and on. We'll go over these in future videos. You can also search based on a certain operator, like any word. So if you type multiple words, it will find any of those. Or maybe all of them. All of them must be in a given scene. That tends to be very useful at times for me. You can look for the exact phrase as well. This is so powerful, I'm going to make this a separate video because I use it all the time to search for things. And so I'll go over some of these features, including like a regular expression search, the most common ways that I use it. But it's a very useful, very powerful feature just to find where all the stuff is, because you do have this folder structure, right? There ends up being a lot of documents that you have by the end of a novel, and so being able to search through those is crucial, really. My 8th favorite feature of Scrivener is the compile. So you have all these Scrivenings, and they make up a short story, a novel, a play, what have you, screenplay, perhaps. And you have to get that into some form that you can give it to somebody else. You're not going to hand them your Scrivener document. You're going to hand them like a Word document or a PDF, or generate a EPUB or Kindle for publication. And so this compile feature brings up another window, and it has a lot of different features, like different formats that you can create and modify based on maybe the genre that you write in. You might write in multiple genres, and so you might have one format for science fiction, another one for mysteries, another one for fantasy, one for short stories, one for novels, that type of thing. And you can select how much of the manuscript you're actually going to send out. You might send out a partial to somebody, or just a couple of chapters for them to look over. Or you can do the whole thing. Really powerful. Also pretty complex, I will admit, and this is going to be its own video, so I will get to that. So be sure to subscribe if you're interested in learning more about compile. My 9th favorite feature of Scrivener is remote editing and sync with iPad. Now, I have my MacBook Pro, and it is pretty portable, but I've found that I like having just an iPad with me at times. If I'm going to a coffee shop or something, it's great to just leave the house with just the iPad, maybe my earbuds, and go and write for a bit and come back. If I'm bringing the laptop, I often need to bring the power brick as well, and then I'm bringing my whole computer bag. And it's just nice to be able to go light with Scrivener, do some writing out of the house, and come back and sync it. So basically what you do is you synchronize your Scrivener project with Dropbox, and I think that's the only option, is Dropbox. And then on your iPad, you connect to the same folder in Dropbox. And so you sync on one side, sync again on the iPad, it pulls in all the changes, and then you can write and edit all you want, and then sync it back to Dropbox. And when you come back to your main workstation, you sync one more time. And that may be done automatically depending on your settings. It may already be there by the time you get back home, kind of depending on how you've set up Dropbox. And so in essence, what you're able to do then is just edit remotely, come back, sync it, and keep going. It's just a nice feature. My 10th favorite feature of Scrivener is the templates. So in Scrivener, we'll go down below here, and we can see that there's a separate folder, and you can change these little icons, which is nice. There's characters, there's world, and there are templates built in for both of those things. So if I go under characters here, and I right-click, I can do an add, new from template, and I'll do character sketch. And so it creates a brand new document, and it's pre-filled. And so I can then fill that in. There's another one for the world, for the setting. So that's great in and of itself, but you wouldn't get very far with it if you couldn't change these templates and add new ones, which you can do. So if we go down to these template sheets, you can take any one of them, you can make a new one, but you can also take an existing one. Let's say I wanted to have, I can just duplicate this. There's a setting sketch, a city sketch. Maybe I didn't have my city sketch yet. Maybe I wanted a neighborhood sketch, so I'll do. And then I will go to the world, where I have all my setting stuff. And now I can add new from template. And I can see this template that I just created. I can create a new one. And it'll have that information here. So I would have altered more in this document, but that would have come along with it, whatever I changed in there. So really nice to be able to have different types of documents pre-created, and that you just have new ones from that template that you put in your binder and fill out. It's very nice to be able to fill out your characters, your cast, your world in a more organized and streamlined fashion. Okay, that was a lot, and hopefully enough for you to know if you want to give Scrivener a try at least. Now, I'd like to hear from you. What are your favorite features of Scrivener? Do you have a favorite editor that isn't Scrivener? If so, please leave those in the comments. And if you found this useful, please like and share with those who might find it useful. As I mentioned earlier, I'll have more Scrivener videos, plus deep dives into the writing process itself, whether it's world building, character creation, plotting, and more. So hit subscribe to be notified when those come out. Until next time, dream big, stay positive, and keep writing. Peace, everyone.